Hello, America. Welcome to the Voice of Freedom Radio, the voice of rural America and the state of Jefferson movement, which offers you liberty and freedom. Our studios are located in Alturas, California, right in the heart of Modoc County. Our environmental message is the 3C's plan: clean air, clean water, and yes, common sense. We cherish our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We will not give up our God, guns, our property rights, or any of our freedoms. Our radio program can be heard on KCFJ AM 570 every Saturday at noon, right after Rush Limbaugh, or visit our website, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com. That's again, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com, to keep yourself informed. I'm Doug.
I'm Ross.
And I'm Anthony.
Are you sure?
Had to think about it for a minute, Ross.
He still ain't changed since the last time he was gone.
No, but he's a lot more handsome today.
Really?
What he'd do is wash his face.
Probably.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank all you nice people that's called us out there last week. And we did get some phone calls. And we want to thank the lady who called us and informed us that she was doing her job as far as making the phone calls to the assemblymen and state senators in California.
In favor of the state of Jefferson.
Yeah, in favor of the state of Jefferson.
That's a great thing.
And also, folks, I'd like to make an announcement. We had a little medical situation here last week. Sunday morning, we was getting ready to go to church, and the wife had a right hip replacement here a while back, and she was sitting on the little love seat there, and all of a sudden, that hip came out again. And this is the third time. I just want to take and give credit where credit is due for the emergency, the people out of Modoc Medical Center, the EMTs that drive that ambulance, also the Alturas Rural Fire Department who responded, and the people were about as professional as you could get, and yet they was just down to earth and common folks. And I'd like to give recognition to the little lady, the little blonde-haired lady that was there as one of the EMTs, and her name is Donetta Kinney. And girl, you did a good job, and you was backed up by old Frank Christopher. Now, he ain't as pretty as you are, but by golly, you people were acting professionally, and this is something that the people out there in Modoc and needs to realize, that there is people on that emergency cruise that's doing a dadgum fine job. And I sure cleaned that one up, didn't I, Ross?
Yes, you did. But I don't think enough can be said about their professionalism.
Yeah. Well, we depend on them, and they come through every time.
They do. Ross, you had something you wanted to, another announcement you had about down there in Fall River Mills here coming up?
Yes, I did. On the 13th, the evening of the 13th
of this month,
of April 13th, there's going to be a candidates night town hall at the Lions Hall in MacArthur. And I believe the doors open at 6 p.m. All three of the supervisors for District 3 will be in attendance.
What's their names?
Well, we have the incumbent, Pam Giacomini, and the new wannabes, if you will, are Mary Rickard and Janet Chandler, all of whom are well-versed in the needs and the requirements of a supervisor in Shasta County.
Well, actually, probably, boy, that three of them ladies going together at one time?
Well, It started out with Janet Chandler challenging Pam Giacomini.
Then what happened?
And then another lady, quite prominent in the ranching industry, Mary Rickert, stepped up and is also challenging Pam Giacomini. It only leaves you one question. Of Mary Rickert and Janet Chandler, which was the best? Obviously, when you have two challenging the existing supervisor, there's something wrong with the existing supervisor.
Well, you get three women together and they're going to bring something out. So they...
That's true. But folks, learn for yourselves. Again, the evening of the 13th of April at the Lions Hall in MacArthur.
I think the word is participation. That's what we're looking for. Participation.
Well, and providing the candidates the ability to inform the people.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know there's a good man out there in Northern California, and he's one of many, but this man has got the knowledge of what goes on up there in the Klamath River in Siskiyou County, because that man lives up there. And we wanted to bring him back on because there's been secret meetings. And in country English, folks, we just call that shenanigans that's going on that needs to be exposed. And we got the man that can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, all over Nevada, Oregon, Northern California, Mark Baird of Siskiyou County. Come in there, Mark.
Hey, Doug, how you guys doing?
We're doing well, and we appreciate your time, Mark.
I think Doug...
Well, thanks for having me on. I sure appreciate the opportunity to speak, and there's an awful lot to talk about these days, isn't there?
There is. The almost criminal actions being taken by Sacramento are damning at the very least.
It's quite a deal when you can sit in a secret meeting that was convened by the state of Oregon, the state of California, and the federal government in violation of all the open government laws, in violation of the Brown Act, in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. They're not planning on going through CEQA or NEPA. They don't care about the wild and scenic river. They claim in their own literature that it will kill all of the salmon for at least 3 years in the river, taking those dams out, because there are 20 million plus cubic yards of nutrient-rich sediment that will fill the river to a depth of 3 feet for 190 miles all the way to the ocean. And I don't know if the salmon are listed. I don't think you're supposed to kill them all. But then they stand back and they say, this is going to create more water. Removing dams is going to somehow magically make more water. And the stakeholders, of course, I call them the bribe holders, because everybody at that table stands to gain money or property at the expense of the taxpayer, the voter, and the property owners of 9 affected counties to that Klamath Dam removal. And by the way, there's only 2 counties that have signed on to it, and I'm pretty sure Modoc County signed on to it because it was some kind of extortion. But Humboldt County is the only willing seller, and I met this supervisor from Humboldt County, and let me tell you, his arguments for why he wants to help pull those dams out are weak. At best, they're weak, and at worst, they're criminal.
Is there any legal remedy, Mark, to stop those people from having those secret meetings? Can we put them on notice?
Well, they're on notice. I mean, they already know. Believe me. Doug LaMalfa's office crashed a couple of those meetings. We managed to get into one that they opened the doors to because they felt a little guilty about having too many secret meetings. Now, that was the last one they had, though, that the public was invited to. And I've got to tell you, I've never seen a bunch of smug liars that were at the table in that meeting. And it just, my public comment to them was the arrogance, and just the arrogance and the disregard for the public good is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It absolutely astounds me that people who claim to serve their constituents and serve the people of this state and this nation could sit in that room and make some of the statements and do the things they were doing. And by the way, Don Gentry, the chairman of the Klamath tribe, was in there. And at a break, he came up to me because I had a mouthful for him, and they didn't care much for it. What's his name? The liar from Department of Interior, the attorney. I'll think of his name in a minute, but it escapes me right now. He came up to me and he said, "What's it going to take to make you whole? In other words, what could we give you so that you'd go away?" And I told him, "Leave the dams alone and go home." Well, he didn't like that answer. Don Gentry, the chairman of the Klamath tribe, came up to me, and he was telling me that he's mad because 160 years ago, white people were mean to the Klamath tribe, and he looked me right in the eye, and he said, "And you white people are going to pay." And I said, "Really, Don?" I said, for something that happened 160 years ago, 175 years ago, I not only don't even know anybody that was alive then, I don't know anybody that had anything to do with that. It's kind of a done deal now. I said, "You know what, Don? You might want to go look in a mirror because you don't look very Indian to me."
Well, Mark,
He was so mad, he was balling up his fist and he stomped off.
Let me ask you this.
Guys, you are going to pay for 10 generations ago, whatever atrocities they committed, and I don't know what they were, and I don't care, because I have a mortgage on my place that if I don't pay, the bank comes and gets the property, and I don't care who was mad at who 2 centuries ago.
Yep.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this. You was right amongst all them people up there. Is there one person on the opposite side up there that could give you an answer to how, when they take out 4 dams on the Klamath in a fish hatchery, does the Klamath Basin up there in Oregon get more water?
Well, here's the deal. Obviously the arithmetic tells you that there isn't more water. The amount of water is finite. It comes down in rain and snow, and it melts, and then it goes into these river systems and lakes. So there isn't going to be more water, whether the dams are there or the dams are out. The water is finite. Now, what dams do serve to do is store water. And so, for example, last summer, the K-Rock tribe, we call them the Crook tribe here in Siskiyou County. They've sued Siskiyou County more times than any other single entity in the history of this county. The Crook tribe says that if we just take the dams out, then the salmon will make this mystical and magical recovery. And by the way, we've had record runs of salmon the last several years. But they were the very ones that also thanked Pacific Corp for a late summer release of water that they claimed saved a fall run of Chinook salmon. Now, without those dams, there's not going to be any release of water. Whatever you get, you get. And as far as the Klamath Basin goes, here's the deal. The Administrative Law Court in Oregon, their water rights are different from ours, thank God. I mean, we at least have property rights for water today, so far. But it's still early yet, but we do. But in Klamath Falls, in Klamath in Oregon, it's a little bit different, and I'm not sure what their water law is, but it's not the same as ours. So an administrative law judge gave the Klamath tribe all of the water rights in the Klamath Basin with a seniority date of, quote, time immemorial, which is absolutely ridiculous. For them to make the claim that they've been in the Klamath Basin forever and ever is the worst lie I've ever heard in my life. Quite frankly, they probably stole the land from some other tribe that was there before them. But anyway, so now this tribe has all of the water rights, all of them. And what they're telling all of the irrigators and farmers and Bureau of Reclamation Project irrigators is that if you don't play ball with us, we will shut off your water. In other words, you have water at the pleasure of the Klamath tribe. Now, if you agree to rip out those dams, we will not promise you an absolute to the water, but we will promise you that we won't monkey with your water quite as much as we do now. So that's where the more water is. It isn't more water. It's a promise from the tribe up there that they won't pull people through the eye of a needle like they usually do every year since they've gained this power and this control. And what they're looking for is 100,000 acres of public land paid for by the taxpayer that they've already owned twice and sold and blown the money. Now they want that land back for the third time, and they want it to be on the taxpayer's nickel. And if they get their, what they call their, quote, bargained for benefit out of the agreement, then they won't mess with the irrigators quite as much as they could if they don't get the bribe. There isn't going to be more water. Dam removal is simply a pre-commitment so that hopefully these poor guys in the Klamath Basin will be able to somehow make a living. And they have no guarantee in that agreement, by the way, because Article 8, Section 1 of the KHSA, the new agreement, says that this agreement in no way changes or diminishes any Indian tribal right. So the minute they get mad at those irrigators, they can shut the water off anyway. Those people are fools for signing up for that.
Well, I'd just like to ask one question, Mark. If there are no dams, how do they shut the water off?
Well, see, the Klamath tribe is 90 miles upstream from the highest dam. That dam removal doesn't affect them one lick. The dams are downstream of them. Where they will shut the water off is they will not allow water from upper and lower Klamath Lake to go into the canals that serve the irrigation project. They will insist that those head gates remain closed so that the water can stay in stream to benefit the environment and the fish.
Well, my
So
question.
I've got to say, once those dams come out and fish start to die, because when you read the McGee diaries and you read the diaries of the Applegate Party and you read the Kidder diaries, this is an ephemeral system, fellas. When there's no snow, there ain't no water. And there are a lot of stories the old-timers tell about being able to cross the Klamath River and not even getting your feet wet in a dry year. So without those dams, that lake water will be mandated for in-stream flow in order to save the environment and save the poor fish, and there won't be any for those farmers. These guys are idiots, and they are suckers for signing up to this deal.
Well, that was my question, Mark. How can you trust people that have that kind of convoluted thinking to follow through with any promises that they make? It's illogical to
The
trust.
answer to that is you can't, and Chamberlain learned that from Hitler firsthand.
Yeah.
You know, he came back, he gets off the airplane, I have achieved peace in our generation, and peace in our time, and peace forever. And I don't know, what was it, less than a year later, we were in World War II.
Yeah.
So you cannot trust a liar. Liars lie, it's what they do. These people are all liars and they're scam artists. And they stand to gain hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money if this thing is allowed to go forward.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this. You know, we've been in a drought for the last 4 years or so, and those dams have saved the salmon down there, like you said, because they released it, and they had enough water. At least they could get up to Iron Gate. Also, if they take them dams out and we go into another 4 or 5 year drought, and there's no water to go down that river, that whole thing it's going to turn into a disaster. And all we've got is one big mess because people were greedy and they did not want to do what's right by their fellow human beings.
Well,
Oh, yeah, Doug, pretty much. That's pretty succinct, but I think you covered it all. This is nothing more than a scam to steal taxpayers' money and taxpayers' land and to gain a tremendous amount of power over your neighbors for selfish and criminal purposes, and pretty much that covers it.
Well, Mark, let's talk about another theft, if we will. That being the water bonds that California has incessantly passed over the number of years. And what's happened with all those funds that were designed or claimed to provide more water for more people?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me if I laugh every time I think about that. I am pretty sure that the legislators that passed that scam didn't even read it. It took me half a day to read that mess, and I am absolutely flabbergasted that every single one of our supposed representatives voted to support that water bond and its passage when 9 out of 10 counties in the state of Jefferson at the time voted no on it on the ballot. And one of our legislators said, "Well, I'm just providing more water for your grandchildren." And I asked him how. I said, "Did you read that thing? There is only one water storage project built into that, the Sykes Reservoir. That Sykes Reservoir has been on the books since President Eisenhower was in office." I was at a Rangeland Trust meeting down there in Colusa County to give those guys an update on Jefferson. They have a liaison to the Sykes Reservoir Committee who's trying to get that thing built. And that guy came back and he said, "Well, I just want to tell all you guys, I doubt they'll turn a shovel on that job until 2030. He said, "First of all, there won't be a shovel full of dirt taken out of the ground until at least 2030. And he said, "And by the way, there isn't enough water left to sell to pay for our half of the project, because locals have to pay for half of these projects." So what's going on is 50% of the water in Sykes Creek Reservoir has been pre-allocated to save the environment. The other 50% has to be paid for by the water right owners or the contract water users. And by the way, they're already paying for that in advance of the project so that they can save up their half. Now, here's the problem. When they get that project paid for, number one, there's no guarantee that they'll get any water. Number two, there isn't enough water left after the environment gets it to satisfy all of the contract water users and what they're paying for. And in addition to that, it's costing them twice what water should cost to even subscribe to that scam, that mess. So Sykes Reservoir, probably not going to happen. That project will probably fail before it ever gets started. I'm looking at the rest of this water bond. There is $1.5 billion in it for saving the environment, sustainable communities, they call it. There's $500 million in it to, safe drinking water quality projects. I'm not sure really what that means. There is another $500 million for statewide water planning. Now, how could you spend $500 million on water planning? I mean, how many people are you employing in that?
Well,
there's a couple of $100 million in there for forest and wildlife conservation. There's another, what do we got here? $441 million to protect the beaches, bays, and coastal waters. There's $500 million in it. No, I'm sorry, that's looking at the wrong slice. There's $63 million in there for parks and nature education facilities, porta potties and trails and stuff. So now I'm looking for water storage, and you know what? Wow, I just don't see any.
It sounds...
Oh, and there's $500 million in there to what the governor calls honor existing agreements and remove impediments to fish passage. Now, when I reminded our state senator that means dams, remove dams. In other words, we will build nothing new, and we will take out 4 perfectly good dams. Oh, and by the way, this little hoax is going to cost the people of California $360 million a year for the next 40 years.
It's fraud from the beginning to the end, Mark. As you well
but you know what,
pointed out.
guys? Here's the deal, and this is one thing we really, really need to get a handle on. This is our own darn fault, because we have not been riding herd over these crooks and charlatans and fraud artists. We need to get up. We need to start paying attention. We need to demand compliant behavior. We need to start making phone calls, emails, showing up, voting, organizing, talking to our neighbors, saying no. If we don't get a handle on this deal, it won't be very long before we'll all be broke and we'll all be gone.
Well, Mark, when Mr. Dolly was running for assembly, he came over here to Modoc and went up there in the northern part of Modoc and was telling the people that basically he didn't want the dams taken out. Then I know he came to Siskiyou County, and he was like a barnyard rooster crowing that over there all over Siskiyou County. Well,
yeah.
Then he turned around and he supported this Prop 1.
Well, all of them did. So
I know they did.
I honestly can't single him out. Every single one of them said they were against dam removal, but they were for Prop 1, and we were trying to point out to them, hey, dam removal's in Prop 1. Well, I was at one of those water bond focus meetings. I've been to a couple of them, and I was in Senator Nielsen's office with all of the players, I guess you could say, Environmental Law Foundation, Westlands Water, West Side Irrigation, Friant Irrigation, you know, all of the big boys in it. And one of the guys said, I said, you know, I'm the only one in this room that is adamantly opposed to this water bond. I'm telling you guys right now, I will do everything, every fiber in my being will be spent towards stopping this water bond. And I think you guys, shame on you guys for even supporting this thing, because what you're doing is you're bringing home billions of dollars worth of goodies on the taxpayer's nickel, and you're going to use $500 million to throw a bunch of good, honest people under the bus.
I know, Mark, the
And
voice.
the guy from Westlands Water, you know what he said? He said, well, what's this about the Klamath Dams? And Nielsen says, oh, you know, those are the 4 dams on the Klamath River they want to rip out. Well, nobody in that room said, oh, wait a minute, we can't be a part of that. You know what they did? They all went, oh, how about that?
Yep.
You know, Mark, even the California State Farm Bureau supported that Prop 1.
Well, of course they did.
They all know.
They don't make any money off the members up here. I don't know why. I wouldn't. Personally, I wouldn't join that bunch. Their money is with the corporate farmers down below, and that's who they support. They don't get any money off of guys like you and me, and they don't support us.
Well, we put over the air, I don't know how many times, Mark, about that Prop 1. Please do not take and vote for Prop 1 because there's millions of dollars. I think the figure I kept saying was $500 million to take 4 dams out over and over and over. But, you know,
Right.
they really, I don't think a lot of these people really go into and find out what's going on. They just look at all them water bonds and say, well, do you want more clean drinking water? Do you want more water storage? And they'd say, oh, that's for me. And away they go. That's a yes vote.
Well, it's
Yeah, I
time.
got to tell you, you got to read that stuff. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Some of the things that are in those bills, and and Brian Daly has said to me before that they hand that stuff to them the night before at 11 o'clock at night. It's delivered to their office, and at 7 o'clock the next morning, they're expected to vote on it. I just don't see, personally, I think it is the height of incompetence and fraud to vote on something when you represent people that you have never read.
Yeah, they're really making decisions on talking points that the proponents are putting out there, and it's all a matter of self-interest, like you've said, Mark.
Well, it is. It is nothing but money and power. And by the way, I have to remind the people in Protect Our Water and even the State of Jefferson movement sometimes that this has nothing to do with fish. It has nothing to do with the environment. Nobody cares about that stuff. Certainly not the environmentalists. They don't care about it. This is about money and power. And it's your money, folks, and it is your liberty. And let me tell you, without liberty, nothing you love, nothing you hold dear, nothing you have is safe from these people. Without liberty, all of that stuff is up in the air, and it's open to question. It's up to the next load of crooks to see whether they want to take your money, take your land, take your property, destroy your family, destroy your job, take your resources. And by the way, they seem to be able to do it at will because we, the people, are not saying no.
Well, Mark, there is I read it last week somewhere. I believe it was in the Herald and News, because they all time or could be in the Capital Press. You know what I mean? I take all them dead gum papers, Mark. I got so many papers in here. The wife sometimes, she keeps the papers and throws me out and think I'm a newspaper, Mark.
Well, you know, Doug, the Capital Press, that guy Tim Heerden is nothing but a liar too. You know, he's a very extreme leftist. I won't pay for those things anymore. You know, to me, why on earth would I pay a liar to print news? Why on earth would I pay for that? Why on earth would I watch a program that doesn't tell the truth? Why would I read a publication that doesn't tell the truth? You know, I vote with my money, first of all. I won't spend a nickel on those liars, because when you do, you're just helping them make a living.
Well, Mark, you down in on that the Herald and News, there is a group in California. I don't know the name of them, but they have realized for the last, 20 years or 15 years, all these water bonds that the governor of California and his state liberals in the state legislature, they pass these water bonds, and now they're realizing, it took them this long to do it, but they're realizing, and they got something coming up on the ballot that will put a stop to this. I don't have the particulars to it, Mark, but as soon as I get it, we'll let you know, or you already might have heard about it. What say you, Mark?
I have not heard about it, Doug, so if you know something, let me know.
As soon as I find out, Mark, I will be glad to do it, partner.
The, the key today, folks, is to quit believing that the representatives you have hired are doing what you hired them to do. Double check on them. Make sure that they know what you want done.
Yeah, I think it's called.
Yeah,
I think it's called
do that,
participation.
and, I have to say, we need to start anytime anyone runs for an office that's unopposed. That's a shame and a crime, and it's we the people who are at fault. I mean, if someone ever runs for an office and no one opposes him, we need to find a candidate and stand against the guy. We need to start kicking these bums out, every single one of them, and replacing them with ordinary citizens. And, a lot of people say, well, he has no experience in government. To me, my friend, that's a badge of honor. I mean, we have had citizen legislators for several hundred years, and this republic did just fine until the professional politicians and the crooks got in charge.
You talking about Washington, D.C., Mark?
I'm talking
about your community, your state, your city, your federal government, talking about all of them.
I understand that. I just had to get that Washington, D.C. in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I figured.
Okay. But, Mark, let's change the subject for a moment, and let's talk about the recent ruling in D.C. by the Supreme Court over voters' rights.
Yeah, well, the Abbott versus Evenwall is a case that was kind of interesting. Sue Evenwald brought it out of Texas, and the contention was that since some counties, rural counties primarily, have large percentages of registered voters, and a lot of urban counties have large percentages of illegals and illegal aliens, and not as many registered voters per district, that the vote was being diluted in Texas, and that the state, therefore, was at fault, and it was unconstitutional for the state of Texas to use one man, one vote as a metric with equal population by people in each district. And as you know, that was mandated by a court case called Reynolds versus Sims, and backed up with another court case, or two court cases, Baker versus Carr and Gray versus Sanders. And when that case was brought forward, I did not think they would win, because they're attacking a case that politically is pretty popular with liberals. In other words, when Reynolds versus Sims opinion was issued by the Supreme Court, and by the way, the Supreme Court doesn't make decisions, they only issue opinions. They don't have the Article 3 jurisdiction to make decisions. When they issued that opinion, it changed politics in this nation, because there were only 11 states in the Union that, prior to 1964, that used strictly a population basis for apportionment districts, not only for state officers, but also for Congress. And a lot of people had county voting systems where each county had representation on the state level. So when Reynolds came out, it changed this nation in the sense that the urban areas always have more people, always have more representation. For example, there are 11 counties in Jefferson that share one state senator, but Los Angeles County has a total of 15 state senators. One county has 15 state senators. So we don't have any representation, but I think where Evenwald made a mistake was that they demanded on overturning the original case, and politically that was never going to make it. Now, they may have won had Scalia not passed away, because Antonin Scalia was the best friend the United States of America ever had on the Supreme Court in our time, because he was what people called him a textual originalist. And I think that's kind of a funny statement, because what Scalia was, he was a guy that when he read the Constitution, he thought it meant what it said. So if you read a document, a contract, and you think it means exactly what it says, then that makes you something odd in the world today. Because the liberals and progressives say that the Constitution is a living document, and the Founding Fathers couldn't have known about the Internet, and they couldn't have known about illegal aliens, they couldn't have known about large cities. So Ginsburg wrote the majority opinion, and basically it was a party line deal that said, no, one man, one vote is established law, long established law, she called it. Well, it's the same thing as gun control, guys. If the court makes you give up your gun, it's not established law, it's tyranny. Well, the court made states give up their one representative for each county. That's not established law, that's tyranny. So even Wall failed because Scalia died. That left 4 progressives and 4 conservatives on the court, and as you well know, if something's tied, you lose. But in this case, the way they brought the case was based on the 14th Amendment, which says very clearly, all people are to be counted for congressional districting. All people. It doesn't say voters, it doesn't say people over 21, it doesn't say anything like that. It says all people, except Indians who are not taxed and those who are involved in revolution or insurrection. So if you're in the middle of a revolt, and that was based on the Civil War, by the way. So if you're in the middle of a revolt, you're not counted for congressional districting, obviously. If you're in an Indian tribe that isn't taxed, you're not counted, but everybody else is counted. So all of the justices said, yeah, you may have a point in a lot of areas, but the state of Texas was acting according to the 14th Amendment. So even while lost, however, in the dissent, several of the justices mapped out the road to success for us. Even while the loss of that case was not a bad thing for Jefferson. And in fact, in the dissenting opinions of Thomas and Alito, they in a sense laid a trail of breadcrumbs that said, if you want to attack this in a way that will win, do it this way. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're not attacking Reynolds versus Sims. We're simply saying that instead of limiting the number of representatives and then having bigger and bigger and bigger districts as time goes by, we're saying that you should expand representation and add more lawmakers as population increases so that every county still has representation.
Well, Mark, let me...
And the justices said that's not a bad way to go. In fact, they said that there is nothing in the Constitution that says a state can't have one house based on geography and community and one house based on population, the same as the United States government has.
Well, Mark,
and that's what we're pressing for. So they, in effect, told us we could win if we approach it differently than Evenwald did, and that was our plan all along.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this. I just wanted to bring you something. I got wind of it. It's off the subject a little bit, what we're talking about, but isn't it not true that if the illegals can get driver's licenses in the state of California? Is that true?
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of California, and you can become a lawyer in the state of California if you're here illegally. In other words, the method you chose to come here is a violation of law, but you can get a law degree and represent other law violators.
Well, is it not true that you can also, when you get a driver's license, you can register to vote at the DMV? Is that not true?
Oh, no. That's not the way it works. When you get a driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote unless you opt out.
Okay, well, I got word from down below, way down below, and I got to check it out. But there's a lot of illegals down there, And what they're doing is registering to vote, and they're getting the absentee ballots. You follow me? And
Yeah,
when they get
I don't doubt that for a minute.
when they get
This state is nothing more than a criminal enterprise that is designed to keep the people in power that are in power right now and to fill their pockets at the taxpayers' expense. So that doesn't surprise me a bit.
So what they're doing is they don't know how to fill out these absentee ballots. So we got an Uncle Frank or Uncle Pete that's in the community, and he says, "Well, bring them to me, and I'll take and turn them in for you." And this is happening right now. But I can't say that I
Hey,
got.
Doug, it's even worse than that. There are groups in this state right now that will go around and fill out the ballot for you. If you don't understand and you can't read it, don't worry. We'll fill it out for you and we'll mail it for you.
That's the logic that I was trying to get across to you, but you got a better set of words than I have, Mark.
Well,
Yeah. And remember, guys, what Joe Stalin said. He said it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes.
Yeah, it's just a voter registration scheme to keep them in power. It's simple.
And
Corrupt,
they're doing
but
it.
simple.
And, but look, this is our own fault. They're doing it because we're not stopping them.
Yep.
Well,
That's why we're not stopping them, and we can stop them.
and that's what we need to bring to the forefront immediately. It's
Yes,
it's
I
the
totally
citizen.
agree. I absolutely agree. We need to bring that to the forefront immediately.
It's the citizen's obligation to the country to speak out and vote according to the Constitution.
why they're trashing the Constitution?
Benjamin Franklin said that the Constitution is suited for a moral and religious people, and it is wholly inadequate to govern any other.
Well,
When
and
we
if you,
lose our morality, fellas, our liberty goes with it.
well, it's not just morality; it's apathy. You know, most people in the state think that they don't. None of this is going to affect them. That they're safe. What we need to communicate to the people is everybody will suffer for this. You allow this kind of tyranny to happen, and you will pay sooner or later. You will pay.
You know, a lot of people are maybe a little bit better off than some of the rest of us. Their kind of deal is kind of, I don't want to upset the apple cart. I'm doing okay. But what they're not doing is they're not squinting and looking down the road to their grandchildren's future, because their grandchildren will grow up in a nation that you and I would be horrified at. They already are. We have places of higher learning where the cupcakes and snowflakes who are enrolled there demand a safe space whenever they hear free speech.
Yeah.
They demand to be protected from free speech.
Well, Mark, it's getting down toward the end of this thing. If you got anything else you'd like to talk about, if you have, you just keep on talking.
Well, I do, guys. I just want to update you on Jefferson. Our attorneys are preparing the lawsuit right now. It's a long process. We're working on the filings and the pleadings and the plaintiff's list and so on. We do plan to be in court, but one thing that I want to mention, and this was a problem for Evenwall, there are two ways to lose in the Supreme Court when you only have 8 justices. If it's a tie, you lose, or you could lose on a straight vote. So what we're doing is we're timing our legal case so that we wait until there's that 9th justice. But one thing we want to do is urge everyone, we have not been paying attention to national politics because, our theory is we need to fix the things that are wrong in our own backyard before we start worrying about stuff 2,000 miles away. And I still believe in that. However, it would really be a big help to the state of Jefferson if a conservative were elected president and if a conservative were to appoint the 9th Supreme Court justice. I don't care who you vote for. I'm not trying to tell you how to vote or how to conduct your life. But all I'm saying is if a conservative is elected president, it is far more likely we will have a conservative 9th justice and we will win the Jefferson case.
Well,
and that will do one of two things. It will either force a huge and dramatic expansion in representation so that each and every county has an assembly person and a state senator, or it will outright get us the state of Jefferson, one or the other.
Well, I can simply say this, Mark. If we don't get a conservative president in this next election, if we don't end up with a conservative majority, we may as well say goodbye to our rights and our freedoms. We may as well take down the flag and look for some other country to start up again, because we will lose it.
Well, I see what you're saying. I've been one kind of soldier or another all my life. I've been in 6 conflicts, 7 if you count the one I fought in, and I've got to say, I am a fighter. If there is a breath left in the dog can still fight. I will not give up whether we get a conservative or a liberal. We have to fight, and we have to never stop fighting until we put this train back on a constitutional republic, a track toward liberty.
Well, what I'm saying,
because
Mark,
once again, without liberty, nothing you love and nothing you hold dear is sacred. Nothing is safe without liberty.
what I'm saying, Mark, is that you can always fight. I agree, but this is our one best chance to turn it around. If
we may not get another chance in our lifetime, I do agree with you there.
That's the point. It's doable at this point if we can just rally the people, if we can get rid of the apathy out there and wake them up to the seriousness of this situation and get them involved. People, you have no idea how close we are to utter destruction in this country.
Well,
once again, the loss of liberty, there's nothing left worth saving. Without liberty, what else do you think you're going to save? Without liberty, you're not going to be allowed to keep the money or the property, and you wouldn't be allowed to use them anyway.
Yep.
So, if we're not willing to fight for our liberty, what are we willing to fight for?
Yeah, and tragically, I don't see that willingness in most of the populace, and that very much concerns me.
what he's trying to say.
That's true. However, it is up to us, people who are awake and do see it, it is up to us to lead from the front. We have got to set an example. We have got to expose the truth like you guys are doing right now with your radio show. We have to infect our neighbors. We have got to tell the truth far and wide and turn over that rock and shine the light of day on those cockroaches. If we don't do it, no one will.
Well, Mark, what he's trying to say is he's ready to still fight, but he's got to take a sandwich with him. You know what I mean?
A sandwich is always a good thing because it's probably going to be a pretty long day when the fight really starts.
Yeah, but he's a long day, all right, and into the night, too.
Yep, that's right.
Anyway, I was reading the Lassen County Times in the letters to the editor. You know, Susanville, Mark, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
There was 4 or 5 letters in there, and they was all byproducts of Keep California Together. You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And they kept saying, well, why would we want to go to Jefferson? Because we're so poor. You know, them people hadn't got enough kahunas to realize that the federal government and the state government is what's made us poor by taking away our way of life. These people, they don't understand it. Or maybe they do, and they just wanted to put them letters in there to get other people to do that. You know what I mean?
Well, remember, Keep It California is nothing more than members of the Democratic Central Committee of every county in Jefferson. They don't want to go to Jefferson because they wouldn't have all the goodies, and they wouldn't have all the power, and they wouldn't have all the money, and they wouldn't have access to all of the representation anymore. And a little reporter gal from Oregon said it best. She was from the Illinois Valley Press Democrat or something like that. She said, and she actually said this, she said, I would rather kill myself than live in the state of Jefferson. I said, really? That's pretty powerful. Why would you say something like that? And she said, well, because if you had the state of Jefferson, me and my liberal friends wouldn't get all of the things we want anymore. And I said to her, so what you're saying is that you and your friends have all the representation, and you think it would be horrible if your neighbors, who don't quite think like you do, had some say in how taxes were spent and representation as well. And she said, yeah, we don't want that. We want to have all of the things we want. And then she stopped and she said, that sounded a little selfish, didn't it? And I said, well, yeah, a little, but that's how they think.
Or do they think at all?
Well, I think they think they're thinking, but I don't think they are.
Somebody makes up their mind for them, and it sounds good, and it's their buddy, and so they go along with it. I've seen it so many times.
That's true, because it's real easy to give people stuff. But remember also, government does not manufacture anything. Government doesn't produce anything. Government cannot give you anything that it didn't take from someone else. And Thomas Jefferson said, any government big enough to give you all the things you want is also big enough to take them away.
Yep.
And remember, if they can do it to someone else, they can do it to you.
That's what the state of California and Governor Moonbeam and that legislature down there is doing right now. They're taking our freedoms away from us, And
well, they're in the pay of the unions. Governor Brown is in the pay of the unions. The minimum wage deal is a perfect example of that. And by the way, state employees are exempted from that. So even though he is telling you that you, as a business owner, must sacrifice profit in order to pay your employees more, he's not going to pay his own anymore.
Well, what else is new? He hadn't been telling the truth for many years, so...
Well,
Well, there's another reality that CalPERS is about to abandon all of the unfunded liabilities that they have. And quite frankly, I think if I was on CalPERS, I'd be pretty darn worried about that.
All righty, Mark. Anything else before we wind this up?
Yes, the time has come for 51. Please, if you want to see liberty in your lifetime, if you want to see a free state for your kids, make your phone calls. Go to soj51.net. Make your 5 phone calls every single day and contribute for the lawsuit. We're up to $51,000, and we need $1 million, folks. If we had one $2 bill from everybody in Jefferson, a lousy Jefferson for Jefferson, we could afford to do this lawsuit right, and we will win. And the Supreme Court has just laid out our battle plan for us, and it was pretty close to the one we already had figured out. So we can and will win this lawsuit. I don't care what Keep It California says. I don't care what they want. They're, quite frankly, at this point in the game, they're irrelevant anyway.
Yeah.
But if you want a free state, if you want liberty and property rights, and if you want to get away from the kooks in California and gain representation for your county, make your phone calls, have your friends make theirs, contribute everything you can to this lawsuit. By the way, no one in Jefferson gets any money. We're all doing this out of our own pocket. 100% of the money will go to fund the lawsuit. 100%.
Well, Mark...
And the time has come for 51.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. You're truly a friend to all people out here listening to this radio station. And we've known you for some...
Well, thanks, fellas. I appreciate you and what you're doing for liberty. Please keep up the good work. And I know it isn't easy sometimes, but, keep up the good work and spread the word, expose the truth. And if we keep doing that, then someday in our lifetime we may well see some liberty.
All right,
Absolutely.
Mark, you have a good day, and say hello to that Miss Cindy, okay?
I will, and thank you so much for asking about her.
All right. Good day to you, Mark.
Good day, Mark.
Good day.
Hey, Doug, isn't it about time for a commercial?
Oh, man.
I was getting worried we weren't going to have one.
You was?
Yeah, well, I like listening to Mark. He's brilliant. He's well informed, and he's capable. And believe me, folks, all of you out there listening, the man knows what he's talking about. Please,
He was
please back him up.
command pilot, one of those big jets, the big ones, like the
understand.
president rides around in. The big ones. He's been all over the world. This man, he's been in Vietnam as a veteran. You're listening to the Voice of Freedom Radio. Our program can be heard on KCFJ 570 AM every Saturday at noon, right after Rush Limbaugh. Or you can listen to all our recorded programs anytime by going to our website, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com. You say it one time, Tony.
thevoiceoffreedomradio.com, and make sure you put the there, otherwise the computer it'll get confused and it'll go somewhere else. thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing I'd like to bring up to all the listeners here in Modoc County. The Voice of Freedom Radio will have a table in Alturas at the end of this next week. I understand it's supposed to rain, but maybe next Friday and Saturday. And we're going to be asking for signatures from the people that believe that they want freedom and liberty. And we will have some information to hand out to you people. And basically, there's probably 20 to 25 statements on there how you will benefit by going to the state of Jefferson. And I just want to give you a little tease. First of all, there is no death taxes in the state of Jefferson.
So that means, Doug, I can take it with me?
That means your wife is going to spend it, dummy.
Okay.
Means you can pass it on to your posterity without the government confiscating it. That's what it means.
Also, the corporations, businesses here in Modoc, and all of the corporations that move into Modoc and the state of Jefferson, all 21 counties, there will be no corporate tax. Example, 700 companies in the United States of America has moved to Ireland because they have a corporate tax of about 12%. In Jefferson, it's zero. That means jobs. Look at your children, look at your grandchildren, and say, kids, now you can stay home and get a good job and live in the environment that you'd like to be raised in.
Well, let me just say about that signature business, Doug, you're talking about. Everybody's heard the phrase, you can't fight City Hall. You know, we say it all the time. Well, you can't fight. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, well, we can't fight the state of California. You know, in my opinion, people who think that way are already slaves. You can fight City Hall. You can stand on your rights. You can stand for what is right and proper. You can do the right thing. Step up, sign that document, do whatever it takes to support the people who are trying to preserve your freedoms. That's the very least that you can do.
This is wanting to go to the state of Jefferson. We got to get 51% of the people that voted in the last gubernatorial election here in Modoc. We've already got about 300 to 400 signatures, but I've been out for the last 3 months and also with a hip replacement. But we will be in town. These signatures, you don't have to be a registered voter. You just have to write your name and be able to print your name. And therefore, if the Board of Supervisors in Modoc, like the paper says, you dreamers out there, if they change their mind and they say, no, we don't want to go to the state of Jefferson, if we get 51% of 2,900, which is about 1,500 signatures, that eliminates whatever the supervisors want. And that's what it's all about. From the land that you love and the God that created it.
Oh,
Good day, America.
love it.
God bless you. Stop by at the table and say hello, folks.